It was supposed to be a normal college night. Music blasting, people laughing, friends dancing like tomorrow didn't exist. And for 22-year-old Katie, it was meant to be one last carefree weekend before life got serious. But instead, it became the last night she would ever be seen alive. And what happened in the hours after she walked out of that party alone would haunt an entire community for years. Because Katie simply didn't just disappear, she was hunted. And the terrifying part, her killer crossed her path by pure chance. Katie was kind of person who filled every room she walked into. Friends said she didn't just enter, she arrived. Loud laugh, sharp humor, endless energy. She was the oldest of three siblings, the natural leader of the family, the one who made plans and dragged everyone along on adventures. She just had finished college, graduate school was next, an MBA, a big future. Her parents described her as unstoppable, the kind of person who lived life at full speed, no breaks. And that summer, she was soaking it all in, waitressing, hanging with friends, enjoying her relationship with her boyfriend Joe. But behind the smiles, things weren't perfect. Joe was preparing to move away for work. Katie was about to start grad school. The future felt uncertain. So that Labor Day weekend, they decided to forget about the stress. Just one last wild weekend together. Bars, drinks, friends, parties. And for a while, everything was fine. Security cameras even caught them holding hands, laughing, looking like any other happy couple. But later that night, at a crowded house party, Katie saw something that made her heart drop. Joe kissing another woman. The music was loud, the drinks were flowing, tempers were high. And right there in front of everyone, the two of them exploded into a drunken argument. And around 3 in the morning, Katie stormed out, alone. No phone, no keys, no purse. Just disappearing into the cold darkness. Her house was only a few blocks away. She should have been home in minutes, but she never made it. By morning, something felt wrong. Katie's car was still outside, all her belongings still inside the house. Her bed untouched. Her roommate Tracy started calling everyone. Friends, hospitals, police. That sinking feeling grew heavier by the minute. Then police walked behind the house, and what they found made everyone's blood run cold. A broken window screen, one of Katie's sandals lying in the dirt, and drag marks in the gravel. It looked like someone had grabbed her and pulled her away. But the real horror was still waiting to be discovered. Miles away in the desert, two hunters stumbled across something they would never forget. A young woman's body, half-clothed, burned, posed, dumped like trash. And when police connected the timeline, they knew it was Katie. She has been strangled, burned with chemicals, and fought for her life. Blood under her fingernails showed she has clawed at her attacker until the very end. But whoever did this had vanished into the night. No witness, no suspect, no match of the DNA, just a brutal mystery. And it was natural. Investigators turned to the last person who had seen her alive, Joe. At first, he played innocent, said they hadn't fought, said nothing unusual happened. But slowly, the truth started slipping. Yes, they argued. Yes, he kissed another girl. And strangely, Joe was the only person at the party who refused to give a DNA sample. He left town days after Katie's murder, and also he stopped cooperating. To everyone watching, it screamed guilt. Even police zeroed in on him. But months later, when Joe finally gave DNA, it cleared him completely. He wasn't the killer, and precious time had been wasted. Katie's murderer was still free. Then something terrifying happened in another state. A woman leaving a bar after an argument with her boyfriend was kidnapped. Two men forced her into a truck, strangled her, burned her, left her for dead. But somehow, she survived and gave police sketches of her attackers. For a moment, investigators thought what we all thought, This is it. Same method, same brutality, same timing. Two men were arrested. But their DNA didn't match Carey. Once again, a dead end. Years passed, the case went cold, and it seemed like Carey's killer would never be found. Until one night, another attack almost happened. Two college girls were hiding in their restroom while a man with knife broke into their apartment. Police rushed in just time. They arrested a 23-year-old man named Gabriel. He was charged, released on bail, and then he fled to Mexico. Eventually caught, sent to prison, and while he was locked up, detectives did something routine. They took his DNA, and when it was entered into the system, it matched Carey perfectly. After years of searching, they finally had the killer. Gabriel had never met Carey before that night, not through friends, not through school, not through work. What happened was a pure chance. That night, Gabriel was driving around high on drugs. He almost hit Carey with his truck as she walked home. He pulled over, offered her a ride. She refused. She was almost home. Minutes later, he saw her again, struggling to get into her house through the window. She had left her keys inside. She told him she was fine, and that should have been the end. But instead, something snapped. Gabriel attacked her, strangled her, put her in his truck, drove to the desert, tried to burn the evidence, and left her there, all because their paths crossed at the wrong moment. 30 seconds earlier, 30 seconds later, she might be alive. Gabriel eventually confessed. He pled guilty to the murder, kidnapping, and tampering with evidence. He was sentenced to nearly 70 years in prison. But for Carey's family, justice didn't bring peace. It brought purpose, because they realized something horrifying. If Gabriel's DNA had been taken when he committed earlier violent crimes, Carey's killer would have been caught before she even crossed his path. So, they fought to change the law. They pushed for DNA to be collected from people arrested for violent felonies, not just after conviction. After their fight became known as Carey's Law, and today it has helped solve thousands of cold cases across the United States. Criminals caught, murderers exposed, victims finally getting justice. Carey's life was taken, but her story ended up saving countless others. Her family says they no longer live in what ifs, they live in what now, turning tragedy into change, pain into protection, and making sure fewer families ever have to feel what they felt. Because sometimes evil isn't planned, it isn't personal, it's a movement, crossing of paths, a wrong place at wrong time, and a monster hiding in plain sight. If Carey had walked home a minute earlier, if she had her keys, if she hadn't crossed that street at that moment, this story would have ended differently. But it didn't, and now the world knows her name, not for how she died, but for lives her story continues to save.